Our final reading today comes from the book of John, the first chapter. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only to witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Will you pray with me? Gracious and loving God, we approach this throne that we know is a manger. We approach this story once more, longing to hear your words spoken within. So God, speak to our hearts. Speak as you have already spoken through the Scriptures and through the songs, directly to our hearts. God, may the words that I speak no longer be my own, but God, may they be your words for your people. Amen. So, Christmas reflections. How was your Christmas? I spoke about that earlier, of thinking that hoping that you had a moment to spend with loved ones, whether that was through a FaceTime video, a phone call, an email, a text message, or maybe face-to-face. But it was different this year. So much was different this year. I mean, we can look back over this entire year and see how things have really changed. I mean, we see how things have begun even towards like the beginning of March. Man, when we started to hear about this and things started to shift and things started to change, and we thought, man, if we could just make it to Easter, and if we could just get there and celebrate Easter together. And if you remember, the Easter worship service was in my office in the parsonage. We weren't even in the sanctuary at that moment, even for a live stream. And then, of course, we traveled through the summer hoping that things would get better and that things would start to kind of get back to normal. And for a while, it actually seemed like it was going that way, like we were getting there. And then another big holiday hit, Thanksgiving. And the dreams and hopes of gathering around these huge tables full of family and friends, sharing in this beautiful meal, all of a sudden just started drifting away. And we probably had our first Zoom Thanksgiving meal. And then it didn't look like things were gathering and opening up for Christmas either. And so we decided to try a little something new, and we tried to get as many people together as we could. And as I reflect on this, I think about that 7 p.m. drive-in service. And I think about walking in between the cars every so, at the beginning and before everything started, and just seeing some of the faces of people that had come. It was so good to see those. And then Silent Night came. And a silent night came, and we joined together in song, and we sang from our cars. I looked out and I was able to see all of those little glow sticks. A lot of them actually were kind of like windshield wipers, wiping back and forth. But they were just waving back and forth. And then after coming home, I talked with my daughter a little bit about it, and she says it was amazing. She says Silent Night came on, and people started holding their glow sticks up and started singing, and Sherry rolled down the windows, and Jess was like, quick, turn the radio down, listen. She could hear the voices. The voices singing in the cold. In maybe the loneliness of their cars, but yet surrounded by people. All sharing the same heart, sharing the same mind as they shared this beautiful song of Silent Night. All the while, watching the light snow fall. I dare say that sometimes we think about times like this and go, man, we did our best, we tried our best, we kind of made it work. But then I see things like that and hear about stories like that, and I say, man, God just took and perfected it. Maybe that is just what we needed this year. I know that was what I needed to hear at some point of hearing that story of how things really worked. Because God was working through all of us in that moment and celebrating that time. I mean, that's the overarching theme of Christmas, is it not? Is that God is at work. God is at work in everything. God was at work through the baby inside Mary. And that baby inside Elizabeth. God was at work in there. God was at work through Zechariah and through Joseph. God was at work through the census, through the shepherds, and through the magi. God is at work. God is at work, and God was certainly at work on Christmas Eve as we all gathered around. God is at work in each and every one of us. That is the theme of Christmas, is that God came to be with us. God came to walk our journeys with us. And God is at work. Just amazing to think about that. Even in the midst of so much going on in our world, because there's one other major theme that I see throughout this Christmas story. And it has to do with what we're facing. And it has to do with thinking about this pandemic that we are trying to make it through. And by the way, brothers and sisters, the light is at the end of the tunnel. It is coming. We will be back in this sanctuary soon. I know it. But even in the midst of the pandemic, even in the midst of hatred and racism and all of the political upheaval and the cultural upheaval that we are in this country and in this world, it seems like, man, every time we turn on the news, it just seems like there is darkness everywhere. That darkness is just creeping over and over us. It's getting heavier, and it seems like it's covering us. But I think there's something that we need to know. And that is our lesson out of John. Verse 5, it says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." No matter what we are facing day in and day out, no matter what pandemic is coming our way, what hatred is coming our way, whatever we are facing, illnesses, disease, pain, all of that darkness that seems to be coming will not prevail. Because it tells us this, that the light shines in the darkness. Jesus Christ is the light. And that is what we celebrate this Christmas, is the birth of Jesus Christ, that Jesus entered our world, and with that comes light, and the darkness has not overcome it, nor will the darkness ever overcome it. There is the hope. There is the promise, and there is the peace that we live with, knowing that no matter how dark it may seem, especially as we think of just this past week and the past couple of days, and we hear about stories down in Nashville, and just last night we hear a story out of Rockford. And if you haven't heard the story that there was a shooter in one of the bowling alleys in Rockford, left 3 dead, 3 shot, 2 of them teenagers. Darkness that enters our world, but darkness will not win. Darkness will not overcome the light. And there's a reason why that happens. First of all, it tells us this, and then the other part is here where it talks about John the Baptist, and it says, he was not the light, but he came to bear witness to the light. And if you remember on Christmas Eve, as we talked about lighting candles and snapping our glow sticks and holding them up as beacons of light, that there's a reason. And that is that we are not the light. Jesus Christ is the light. But we are here, just like John was, to bear witness to the light, to testify to the light, to spread the light around. And so no matter what is going on around us, we can be the light into this world. And if you need any more confirmation of that, just think about that longest night. December 21st. The winter solstice at the longest night, when it almost seems like all hope is gone, that darkness seems like it's coming to overtake it, and then we get this wonderful news that 2 planets are aligning and the Bethlehem star is coming. People will say coincidence. I say, but God. God says, I think they need a little bit extra. I need a little reminder that says, hey, here is the light. And the light will not be overcome by darkness. Even on the longest night, this light shines bright. So as we think about the dark places that we're in, and the prayers that have been lifted up on our Facebook page as we share all of those, some of celebrations, but a lot of them are, sharing those dark places. Know that the light has come. The light has come, and darkness will not overcome it. And we are to testify to that light. And so will you pray with me? Gracious and loving God, thank you for sending your light. Thank you for sending your light some 2,000 years ago into this world. Even though the world rejected him, God, we bear witness to the light that he brought into this world. And God, thank you for the hope that you have given to each and every one of us as we think about the dark places, the valleys in our lives that you have come to shine a light into. Because God, we know that darkness cannot exist within the light. And so help us. Help us to be reflections of your light into this dark world. Help us to illuminate, just like so many Christmas lights as we drive around, God. Help us to illuminate our neighborhoods. Help us to illuminate our friends and our family. Help us to illuminate the world around us as we proclaim your message, whether it's in word or deed. Help us to be your witnesses. Those wonderful witnesses that celebrate this Christmas season, the birth of your Son, and all of the wonderful celebrations that we do have, regardless of a pandemic. Because God, nothing will stop Christmas. And nothing will stop us from shouting from the mountaintops, joy to the world. All this I ask in that wonderful baby's name, Jesus. Amen. Let us sing joy.